Hello again, everybody. This is Steve coming to you with another writing informational video, and basically on world building and how to build different elements within your writing world, your super world, and things like that. In this one, I'm covering leadership. Leadership is an important part of any story. Leaders make things happen. Or at least they're supposed to, because you can have good leaders to make good things happen. You can have bad leaders to create disasters and dumpster fires and train wrecks and things like that. You can have villains that are good leaders. You can have heroes that are bad leaders. You can have mighty generals, and then you can have the completely clueless colonel that's better polishing shoes than leading an army. And leadership will make and break an organization. And some people say great leaders lead from the front. I would actually disagree with that. Because I have seen leaders who are great people, but they're not out in front people. You look at, here's a good example of it. In the Earthfleet saga, you have Mike, who likes to get out he likes to get out in the thick of it. He likes to lead from the front. He gets out there, gets his hands dirty. Alfred prefers to lead from the back. But that's not to say that he's a bad leader. Alfred's a great leader. But he's also one that he's comfortable behind a desk. He's comfortable in the back doing the leading that way. And that's where he excels. He's really good with administration and other things like that. When it comes to battle, Mike is the better leader, but when it comes to administration, Alfred's really the better leader, from the sense that he's good with that administrative side of things. And each leader has their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, you can't expect one leader to always be perfect in everything. That's just not humans. You might have people that are good at leading an empire. You might have people that are bad at leading an empire. They will, good leaders will make good decisions. Bad leaders will make bad decisions. And, that's, obviously stating the obvious, but that's something you have to think about. One thing I recommend, and I'm going to recommend this now while it's on my mind, there is a book out there that you can get, and it is called Who Moved My Cheese? If you've ever had that assigned to you in a college class, you know what I'm talking about. That one is really interesting because it covers, through this really amusing and entertaining tale. It's a small book. It's not a big book. But what it does is it shows you all of the primary personality types, the different leadership types, personality types, those who are commanding, those who are there are people who are very observant, which are leaders should be observant, but some leaders aren't. Some leaders are very observant. They're cautious. Some are reckless. Some are, for lack of a better phrase, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. It just, like I say, it just depends on the individual and their personality. Some of them are very obtuse. Some of them are are filled with pride or hubris. And it depends on what kind of personality that you want. Also, personalities work in, sometimes, they'll work in one time period during one series of events, but then you get into a different series of events and they don't. Like, you can have leaders that are just absolutely amazing in wartime or amazing during periods of disaster and turmoil and strife. And then you get the ones that, where they're only good in peacetime. Because, the ones that are great in disaster, you put them in peacetime and they don't know what to do with themselves because they're not used to being in, that kind of situation. They're used to being out in just this raging mess. So, trying to think of another good one. Now, one thing that you definitely want, like I say, is you want somebody. Typically, if you want a good leader, you want somebody who's wise. You want kind of that Solomon idea. If you've ever read the Bible or have heard of the Solomon from the Bible, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. He wrote what was the other book? Song of Solomon. He's featured in the book of the Kings. He's featured in Chronicles. I think it's Kings and Chronicles 1 or 2. I don't remember which one. I'd have to go look at it again. It's not coming up in my head right away. But you also have leaders who are builders. A builder might not be somebody who's good at war, but they would be great at peace. They would be a good diplomat. There's somebody who is looking to be constructive. Just to use, for example, the Bible again. You have Saul, who took over leadership of Israel. He was an absolutely horrible king. This guy could not lead his way out of a wet paper bag. He kept making the wrong decisions all over the place. Then you get David. David was an amazing king. He made mistakes, but he was an amazing king. But David was a war king. You know, the one thing he was good at was warfare. And, you try to put him in a peaceful situation or somewhere where he's not on the front lines, that's where you get Bathsheba. So, he was not good at the... he was not good at what I would consider peacetime leadership. Solomon, though, on the other hand, was. Now, he made his mistakes, and that's another thing too with your leaders. Don't make them too perfect. Give them flaws. Like for example, David in the Bible, he had a problem with women. Solomon did too, but different kind of problem. David was kind of a woman collector, which is part of why he got in trouble with Bathsheba. But you got what's another good example here? You got Simon from Off-World Chronicles. He's very observant, very thoughtful. He's good in disasters. He's good at situations where you just have to kind of shoot from the hip, so to speak. He's good in those situations, but he does better if he has time to think about it. If he has time to think about it and walk his way through it, he does a lot better. But he can do reactionary leadership. Like I said, he's better with proactive leadership than he is with reactionary. And you will have leaders that are like that. Pendleton, on the other hand, if you take like Pendleton from Earthfleet, you throw him in the fire, he's going to do just fine. He's actually kind of he's kind of that Admiral Perry type personality. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. So he's a little reckless in that regard, and that's something that he even is as a pilot. He's a bit reckless, but at the same time, he's the kind that is willing to take risks, and not just some risks. He's willing to go all in. Mike, he's willing to take risks, but they're calculated risks. Pendleton's like, screw it, let's just Leroy Jenkins our way into this thing. And it seems dumb, but the funny part is somehow he always makes it work. He just like YOLOs into the problem and somehow always makes it work. But again, that's kind of his command style. He's good at leading in a way that, you're shooting from the hip, but you're doing it in a way that's productive. You're doing it in a way that's successful. And like I say, he's very good at that. And then, of course, you get bad leaders. Like, trying to think of it's the guy that Bentley was always... Corbin, that's what his name was. Yeah, it was... you look at Dr. Corbin from Earthfleet. He's a leader. He's a good leader, but the problem is he's a little too arrogant for his own good, which creates a lot of friction, especially with Bentley. Bentley just hates his guts. It's but it's more from the fact that the Corbyn's always so arrogant, which ends up getting Corbyn fired, which is kind of funny. Let me think here. Well, okay, yeah. Going back to the Who Moved My Cheese. That, like I say, that's a good quick study on leadership. You don't have to go to these leadership courses, and this is how we do it. And we throw around a bunch of catchphrases and stuff like that. Look at good examples from history. Look at bad examples from history. Like a good example of one type of personality that you could look into is George S. Patton. Like I say, he's kind of he's the guy that has the 6 shooters on his hip. He's kind of the maverick. He's the cowboy. Good leader, great strategist, just kind of a bit of a maverick in how he does things. Look at Erwin Rommel. Rommel was a great commander. That guy could take a disaster and turn it into a victory. He was that good. I mean, he was really, really good. There's people... I'm trying to think of another good one from history. King Louis is a great one as far as people that you don't want to, you don't want to be like him because he's the bad kind of leader. King Edward, I think it was King Edward. It was right around the time of the independence of America, of the United States, and it was because of the King of England at that time, which I think was Edward. I might be wrong. Like I say, it's late at night. I can't get my brain to do the thing. But anyways, that king, that British king at that time, the monarch, he was pretty much insane. And that's not an insult on the British people. It's just, that's a historical fact. The dude was just nuts, and historians even admit that much. And that insanity ended up leading to edicts against the colonies in America that led eventually to them declaring independence. If it hadn't been for him, the United States would still be owned by Britain. It would still be a British colony or settlement or whatever like that. It would be an extension of the British Empire. But because he forced the issue, America broke away and became an independent nation. France has gone through a bunch of revolutions. King Louis and Marie Antoinette, they lost their heads because they were being idiots. Now, Genghis Khan's an interesting one as far as leaders go, because he's another one I'll bring up. He is... he's the charge forward leader, but he's also kind of the villain. He's a good leader. I mean, he's a good leader, a good strategist. I mean, you look at how well his campaigns worked. But, at the same time, he was a very cruel, evil person. Julius Caesar, great leader, very evil person. So, just because you're a great leader doesn't mean that you're going to be a good person. And just because you're a good person doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader. So you got to consider that. Also, you got to consider kind of where did these leaders come from? Did they rise out of the nobility? Did they rise out of the peasantry? Were they self-made? Were they, they grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth? Their back history is going to be a big part of who they are, because that's going to drive what they become. Because if they grew up living in poverty, doing everything bare knuckle, they're going to be one type of leader versus somebody who grew up with a silver spoon, and they have that entitlement mentality, and I'm better than you. I'm nobility, or I'm aristocracy, or I'm oligarchy. I'm rich, you're poor, things like that. Leaders also should inspire. Now, inspire doesn't necessarily mean a good thing, because you can inspire with fear, And when I say inspire, I'm talking about the fact that you're inspiring them to obey because it's either that or they die. So you're greatly encouraging them to obey as if they want to keep their head on their shoulders. Which again, that works also for villains. It works for a lot of different things. Another thing to consider is heroes aren't necessarily leadership material. Just because you're a great warrior, just because you saved a lot of people, you're an awesome medic, you're an awesome fighter pilot, you're an awesome businessman, does not mean you're a great leader. You're just really good at a particular item is what it means. Let me think here. Yeah, okay. So that goes back to the kind of the knighting of certain people from the military, and this is primarily in fantasy, because in like sci-fi, you're typically if you're in the military and you distinguish yourself, typically you're not going to be promoted to a position of civilian leadership. You're going to remain in military leadership, and you're going to work your way up the ranks. To become a civilian leader, you have to leave the military. In fantasy or in historical settings, the nobility handled both military and civilian leadership. So you could easily slot in, come from a position of an enlisted or conscripted person in the military, make a name for yourself, and then get promoted to what is essentially an officer's position. If you're a knight, you're basically a second lieutenant using army ranks. First or second lieutenant, because there isn't an exact 1-to-1, but you say it's like a first or second lieutenant. In some noble hierarchies, you kind of the knighthood kind of starts you out at the same equivalent as a captain. An 03. So, but yeah, that's one of those ones where you so distinguished yourself, you earned a position of leadership, and it's usually because you showed leadership ability on the battlefield, or it might have just been combat prowess and fighting ability. And just because you were given that knightdom doesn't mean that you're going to become a great leader. I've actually got two different animes that I could use as an example here. In Sweet Reincarnation, there is a guy in there, and you're going to laugh at this one, because the guy's name is Casserole, and his son's name is Pastry. And the anime is called Sweet Reincarnation. So there's a whole bunch of punnery in there. It's actually a really good anime and manga, by the way. But anyways, in that story, Casserole is a military hero who's given a knightdom, and he's knighted and given land, and his job is to develop this land. And it's a very poor kingdom, but he shows exceptional leadership skill, despite being this military hero and soldier, an enlisted soldier. He would have started out as just a normal military grunt. But he so distinguished himself that he got given. He was basically promoted to officer in a sense. And then you have the flip side of that. I call it the Eighth Son anime or manga. There's the title's longer, something like "I was born the eighth son" of a poor noble, or something like that. Anyways, in the case of that story, the dad was a hero that was given a knightdom and sent to a kind of a fringe area, which is what happens with a lot of the knights. They're sent out, once they're given their title and land, they're sent out to an area. It's usually on the border or in the wilderness or in areas that the kingdom wants to develop. And they're sent out there to, one, prove themselves that they are worthy of that noble title. And two, they're sent out to develop the land and turn it into usable cropland, cut down the forests for the wood, etc., like that. Basically, they're the grunt workers. They get the low-level peasants. They get the kind of the crappy land, and they get a small stipend to kind of get them going, and they have a sponsoring noble that kind of helps fund them to keep them going. Because when you're starting out, you're going to be running in the red, and like I say, in Eighth Son, he sucks at leadership. The dad does, the one who's got the noble knight title. He absolutely sucks. He doesn't develop the land. They're always poor. You're talking to somebody who's nobility, and this guy basically is barely able to feed his 8 kids. His town is poor. His people are poor. It's a very pathetic situation. But then you have the exact same thing with Casserole in Sweet Reincarnation, where he's a war hero and he's given a knightdom, and he goes out and he's given basically the kind of the same situation as the other guy did, and he excels at it. It takes him about 15 years to completely turn the land around and bring a profit, which is not unexpected. But the fact that he's not running in a total, just gut-wrenching deficit, and then that he eventually is able to bring himself into a situation where he is able to operate in the black, that ends up getting him promoted to baronet. And he gets the promotion to baronet because he, which then, unlocks a whole bunch of extra funding for him to help him continue to develop that land and expand it. But, he gets the promotion to baronet because he's proven himself to be worthy of noble title. So you have both types. Like I say, you got the complete losers and you got the complete winners. You also have the guys in the middle. I don't have any immediate examples of those. But, and here's another interesting one. This is another manga I've come across recently. And forgive me if I get the title wrong, but I think it's Reborn as an Aristocrat with an Appraisal Skill. Sounds dumb, but it's actually a pretty interesting anime. This guy gets reborn into a noble family. I think they're a baron or baronet. I'm not sure. It's not a very high... And the guy's not a knight. He's at least a baronet. And he gets born into this noble family, and his dad is a war hero. His dad's not terribly successful. He's not a failure either, but he's also not like this really successful noble. Kind of, I'd say, middle ground. And, the son that the manga centers around is basically some Japanese office... I would call him an office slave more than anything, but they're basically, the poor sap that sits behind the desk at an office and does the daily 9-to-5 grind, and he never really gets anywhere in his regular life in Japan. He's reborn here, and he kind of starts out a little questionable, but he makes some very good choices. Like I say, he's got some growth he has to do along his way. But because of his appraisal skill, he picks some very good people. One of his retainers is this guy that everybody else is all prejudiced against, and this dude turns out to just be boss mode. I mean, this guy is amazing. And he picks these other people along the way. His dad's kind of not sure why he's picking them, but he finds out, he finds this one girl that turns out to be just this really powerful OP mage. She is just off the hook, absolutely off the hook as far as her power. She's the kind of person that when she walks in, everybody starts looking for a change of underwear. And he's actually a very smart person. Like I say, when he starts out, he's not what I would consider leadership material, and you kind of see that. He makes a lot of mistakes, but the good thing is he learns from those mistakes, and he gets better as he goes along. Which, some people are natural-born leaders, some people learn how to be leaders. There's also something you should look into is leadership styles. There's There's the direct, domineering, kind of the emperor type mentality. There's laissez-faire. There's kind of the committee style or thinking. And then, when I say committee, it's going to be somebody who they act kind of as like the chairman, and they have all these advisors. They're not up there, I don't need your advice. I'm going to make the decision. Or, I'm just going to sit back and I'm only going to step in when I'm needed. They're the kind of person that they will be assertive, but they want all the facts first. They want all the facts, the suggestions, everything that they can get their hands on, and then they make their decision from there. And there's other ones like that. Who Moved My Cheese is a good one to get you started on that, but then you should probably go look up leadership styles, because that's going to be a good one to get you up to speed on leadership, who your different characters, who your different personality types are. Personality types is another one to look into, because that's going to determine what kind of leader you have. Are they good leader? Are they bad leader? Do they have personality quirks? Are those personality quirks a positive or a negative? Are they going to benefit the person? Are they going to hurt the person? Are they going to benefit those who are underneath them? Another one to look into. I do a lot of anime. I admit that. But there's also there's some really good animes out there that I think are worth looking at, because they have some really good, really good examples in them. And I'm probably going to butcher this name too. I'd know it if I saw it, but I'm going to take a shot at it. I think it was something like When a Realist Saved the Kingdom. Basically, this high schooler kid who's like a total realist. I mean, this guy is just just deadpan black and white. He's fun, but like I said, he's deadpan black and white, but he's fun. And he is isekai'd through like a magic circle, which is kind of a theme in isekais. But he's isekai'd to this other world to take over leadership of this kingdom, to try and save the kingdom. And this kid is actually very smart. He does a lot of things very well, but he also looks at everything from a very practical standpoint. How can we fix this? How can we fix that? What's the best way to get the most bang for our buck? And he does a splendid job with leading the kingdom and handling things. And of course, he brings modern era Japan knowledge with him into this medieval kingdom with with demons and beastmen and elves and dwarves and all of this kind of stuff. It's a really interesting manga and anime. And if you actually if you just go in and you read like the English translation of the manga, you can actually learn some things from him. I was reading him and watching the different types of people you had in there. You had the kind of the boisterous, arrogant dragons. You had the very wise and thoughtful and very intelligent tiger general, because he was a beast man, along with the dragon general. And then you have this other lady. I would kind of describe her as a mermaid without the tail. Very, kind of almost elvish in a sense. Not actually elvish, but very elvish in a sense. And she's very long-lived. And she's up in she's like 300 some odd years old. Still looks like she's in her 30s. Kind of funny. That's why I kind of throw in the elvish thing, because elves are like perpetually young no matter how old they are. And that's a good one to read for ideas for doing leadership. One thing about it is it doesn't pull punches when it comes to leaders having to do really dirty, messy things. So that I think that's a good one to go through, and because you'll learn a lot from that one. Because like I say, he's willing to get his hands dirty, and there are times as a leader you have to do that. So that's a good one to look into for ideas and examples for leaders and leadership style and actions and things like that. But anyways, I'm hitting 30 minutes, and I think I've covered enough in this one. If you want me to cover more, let me know. But like I say, I should have covered everything on this one. That would be at least all the high points that would be necessary to get you started. And If you have any questions, you want me to expound on something, you want me to give you more details, let me know. I'll be happy to share with you as always. So thanks again, everybody, and see you next time.